hey ayo, hey ayo, hey ayo, hey ayo, hey ayo, hey ayo, hawa hawa hiane, hoyane, hawa hiane, hoyane, we ha, yaho ganewa, hoyane, yaho ganewa, hoyane, yaho ganewa, hoyane, yaho ganewa, hoyane, we ha, he anu hawe, he anu hawe, he anu hawe, he anu hawe, yanu hawe, hey yo ho, hey anu hawe, hey anu hawe, yanu hawe, hey yo ho, we ha, hey no hey no ya 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 hey we ha, we ya na, we ya na, we ya na, we ya na, oh ya ne, we ya na, we ya na, we ya na, oh ya ne, we ha, yo ho he ho, 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 e do ga ho ne, ho yo.
Osio, sono io sta. Chugi ele nagida ele organale. Do hiju. Hello, this is Machu Whitefeather with Indigenous People's Voice, welcoming all of our friends and family and everyone that's out there. My co-host tonight, as usual, is Doreen Bennett. Kia ora, Doreen.
Kia ora, Marshu, and kia ora koutou katoa. Hello to everyone listening today. I'm here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Kia ora, Marshu.
Kia ora. And I'd like to mention that we also have behind the scenes doing our heavy work so that we can sound halfway intelligent on here is Shimmy Bennett. He's our staff member that's out in Oklahoma. And also Sheila Folger. We have a very special guest with us tonight, and I have met her when I've been in New Zealand. And Doreen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, thank you. And our guest tonight is Linda Thompson. Linda is a health professional in Aotearoa. She's worked with most of our Maori providers, service providers throughout the country, looking at the governance, the management, growth and development for our Indigenous organisations. And she's been a friend, a colleague and a mentor for me, so I'm feeling very privileged to have Linda with us tonight. And kia ora, Linda, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, kia ora. Kia ora, Marshu.
Kia ora.
Everyone else online with us, and thank you, Doreen. Yes, I'm from a place in Aotearoa called Whanganui, and Ruapehu is my maunga, my mountain. Whanganui is my awa, my river, and Atihaunui-a-paparangi is my tribe, my iwi. And like Doreen, I'm very, very privileged to be here and talking with you all today. Kia ora, Doreen.
Kia ora.
Kaupai.
Marcia, you want to pick this up, or shall I just carry on with Linda?
No, I was just going to ask her, what has she been doing up here lately? I was able to talk with her last night and kind of catch up, but what are you up to since I've seen you, Linda?
Well, I do a lot of work with different tribes around Aotearoa, and at the moment I head north of Auckland to the Te Tai Tokerau region, and that's the northernmost part of the North Island of Aotearoa. And I work with a tribal provider organisation in the north, and they are called the Ngāti Hine Health Trust. They've got a beautiful history. The Ngāti Hine ancestor of that particular tribe is called Hine Amaru. And Hine Amaru is the first Māori woman that we know of who gave birth by caesarean section. And so all of her descendants are now a huge tribe called Ngāti Hine. And within that tribal area of Ngāti Hine is a very big, the largest Māori health organisation in Te Tai Tokerau in the north. And so Doreen and I have a very close friend who is the governance chair of that organisation. And Gwen is her name, and Gwen gets me to do quite a bit of health work with her organisation in Ngāti Hine. So that's what I've been doing, Marshu. I've been up there reviewing it's the tribal nursing service that they run out of their organisation, the Ngāti Hine Health Service. They have 17 New Zealand registered nurses there, and I've been looking at what they do to provide services to our people.
Very good. Now, do these nurses actually work like in clinics, or do they have like a lot of our tribal communities where they have nursing services that go into the homes?
Yes, they do all of that. There's some of the nursing services go into homes, and they work with our people, particularly ones who have diabetes, coronary heart disease, and they help them when they come out of hospital to rehabilitate. And they work in rural and isolated areas, and so they're very particular about their practice when they're working on their own in isolation in rural areas. They're very conscious of having to make sure that they have other professional colleagues alongside of them who they can review what they're doing in terms of what they say to our people, say to our families about how to look after themselves better and keep themselves well, because it's a long way to go to hospital or to a doctor if they do get sick.
Very good. Here on Turtle Island, most of the nurses that work like on reservation settings or go to indigenous people, they belong to what we call IHAS, Indian Health Service, and they go through in-servicing on how to deal culturally, if they're not already indigenous themselves, on how to deal with especially our elders, and to deal on a cultural level, with our people, because it is different working with indigenous people than it is with non-indigenous. And so does your health service there also do something similar?
Yes, they do. We have, there's a big support system that is wrapped around all of the workers in the health organisation. So the nursing service is one part, there is another part called community health workers, and a lot of our community health workers are people who are more, they all belong to whānau or families who need services, and these people come from out of those homes and villages to help do all of the health service work alongside of the health professionals. And culturally, the organisation puts cultural programs into place that help both the professionals and the community health workers with things like we use our Maori models of care. So we use processes like pōhiri, the welcoming parts of our culture. We translate that into a health care plan for whānau, and when we go out into their homes, we make sure that the pōhiri takes place, or the pōhiri takes place on the part of the health workers. So we make sure we introduce ourselves in the right way. We are mindful that we are manuhiri, we are the visitors to our family's home, and so we do things like take our shoes off. We don't put things on the table that are to do with the rest of the body, like it could be our stethoscopes, the oroscopes that we use to look in the baby's ears, and all those sorts of things are taught in a program, a core competency program, back in the organisation, so that when we're out in the front line performing our practice and our service, we're very mindful of our people's cultural values and beliefs when we're even delivering services to them. And there's lots of things like that the organisation supports the workers with.
Very good, very impressive. I'm going to interject right now for anybody that wants to call in during the show, and I'll repeat the number several times. Our call-in number is 718-506-1564. Again, that's area code 718-506-1564. You may also message in through our website in our chat room there, and then somebody will let us know what's going on. Very good. It's nice to hear that that's done, and a lot of attention is put on the traditional aspect, because that's the way that the culture is maintained. And even for the little ones that are around, to see that being done, it's such an important reinforcement.
Yeah, that's right. It's all part. It's part of our life. That's how we live. And so while we might talk about models of care and Māori models of health and practice, and in fact, it's mainly how we live anyway.
Yeah.
And so some of the things that we're brought up with, we take that into our work, and because it's part of our life, quite often we're doing this sort of thing quite naturally. And it's little things like we're in each other's homes. We don't sit on the table where we have our meal, where food is. We don't sit on sink benches and places like that where food is cooked inside the home. But as Māori, when we watch television, mainstream television, it still is culturally and spiritually, I suppose, it's an affront when some of the TV programs very clearly display people sitting on tables, happily having their glossy photographs taken with their bums on the sink where we prepare our food. It's just sends us into spinning out. It's culture.
For the people here in Turtle Island that doesn't know what a bum is, that's your derriere.
Sorry.
No, there's just a lot of words that most Americans don't use over here because we don't use the proper English or the proper British terminology. So we have to translate a little bit.
Yes. Bummer. That's right. So we're very mindful of that when we go into people's homes. We're even as health workers, we might have skills, we might have knowledge and experience, and we've got things that we can do with our people. But when we are mamuhiri, that's a different relationship to when they come into hospital, and we are the host, and we put them to bed, and we give them the care that they can't do for themselves. It's a different story when we go into their home, and we are the mamuhiri. We have to be very respectful of taking our shoes off at the door.
Yes.
And things like that.
Have you found in your working in this way, if people go into the home and for some reason they don't follow the traditional respect of the customs and traditions, do you find that there is a little bit of a distrust when that happens, or have you ever experienced that?
Yes, quite often. Have you, Doreen? Yeah, we quite often. Sometimes it sort of depends on the situation. If it's an urgent thing and we want something done and we just want somebody who knows what they're doing, we may well pass that over in terms of getting something done very urgently that we absolutely need. But if it's a situation where they have to come in and start explaining processes of treatment to our people, then that's treated a little bit more formally in our head. And so we may pull them up and just say, oh, would you mind taking your shoes off, please, at the door? Please sit over here. When they go and wash their hands before they do dressings and change dressings on our people's parts of the body, we do like them to go down to the bathroom and wash their hands and not go to the sink, where, again, we prepare our food at the kitchen sink. So, and we show them the bathroom door and say, yes, no, you're welcome to wash your hands there, and they can come out and then attend to us. So there is a little bit of guiding that is required, and when that is appropriate, we definitely give the guiding if they do not know what they're doing.
Okay, here in Turtle Island, I was an Indigenous healthcare professional for 45 years, and for a good 25 years, I was working in a heavily populated Indigenous area, and a lot of the people there were my relation through marriage, and there was a lot of traditions. Even though they would come into the hospital where I was working, I had to be very mindful of that as an Indigenous person. And one example is one of my mother-in-laws came in and she was having chest pain. And with our way, we don't look upon our women. You know, I had to do an electrocardiogram, which means I had to expose her chest in order to put the leads and stuff, you know. So I had to, as part of the way I handle things like that, is that I would go in and I wouldn't look at her, because traditionally, according to the Ho-Chunk way, I'm not supposed to look directly at my mother-in-law. And then my late wife was not allowed to look directly at my father-in-law. It was disrespectful. So when she came in, I walked in and I did not look at her. I walked in and I had my back to her and told her that I am very aware of our traditions and the culture of my wife's people, and that in order for me to make sure that she was healthy and perfectly okay so we would know how to treat her, I needed to do this and I needed to do that, and it was in no way meant to be disrespectful, but this is the only way that I could help treat her according to Western medicine. And she said, well, you better get to it. like that. But the reason it was accepted so well by her is because I took the time to let her know that I knew the traditions, and I was very respectful of that before I did it. And then after that, I don't know why, but I had some cassette tapes in my briefcase, and she was just had a longing to hear some of our traditional music, and I don't know why I had those in there. I mean, hindsight, I do. And I went up and I gave them to her to listen to while she was there, and the next day she was listening to them, and she took her journey listening to those tapes.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
So those things all happen for a reason, but, you know, that's one thing I'm very cautious of, especially when I'm working with elders and extremely traditional people. Another case is you don't tell elders what to do. I've learned working with indigenous people in the healthcare. I found it's easier when you make them think it's their idea. Do you think that?
Yes. And one thing we have was it related to what you're talking about is that with the elderly people, we never touch their head or, you know, anywhere around near their head. Women in particular don't pass anything over the head of a male elderly Māori. And we do have things like that. When they're elderly, we don't cut their nails, their toenails or their fingernails, unless whānau or family members are consulted, and usually the professionals won't do it. It will be something that whānau or family members do, not us.
It's exactly the same thing for us, because they say that's only a family member can touch your head with our people, and never touch the hair, because we say that the fastest way to work medicine, be it good or bad, is through the hair, and never through the nails, the fingernails, or the toenails. Those are strictly done by family, and that's our tradition as well amongst our Cherokee people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have similarities.
Yeah.
Anything else that we know? Oh, no, I've actually been listening, Marsha, because I know that you have that medical history and experience, same as Linda. And I sort of thought, oh no, I'll hang off and wait a little bit, because Linda and I have a history at the other side, working with our Māori health providers, or Māori providers, which is at that governance management and you know, establishing them, helping them to grow.
Oh, yes.
And we've both worked with a lot of organisations throughout Aotearoa, to the point where I think one part there we were naming ourselves Chaos Engineers.
Well, Reed, if you remember, I actually met you when you were working for one of these facilities.
That's right.
I'm sure that's lots of fun memories for you.
But as a team, it worked quite well, because I don't have that health and medical or clinical expertise, where Linda does, as well as all the other stuff. And I came in with her doing all the other stuff. So it works quite well balanced when we go out to work with our people.
Yeah, yeah. So for Māori, we've been on, well, it's an everlasting journey, it seems to be. The older I get, the more it seems as though there is no end to our development. So we've been on a journey, a pathway of Māori health development for decades and decades. And there really does seem to be no end to that. We get to one place, and then there's a lot more that we need to do. And I'm talking about things like the sorts of diseases of colonisation, if you like, that we suffered from, a lot of stress, all of our abuse and addiction conditions, that we've had those sorts of things, but we've had devastating things, and I know I'm talking to you as the First Nations of the United States, and it is probably far worse. But the devastation and the impact and the attitudes that we've suffered from probably not any different at all, because who these people are who colonised us. So we've had devastating child health statistics, the children dying and things like that. So we get over those sorts of hurdles by the sorts of services and programs we've been able to influence and have some input for. But as soon as we think we're making way with better statistics, there's fewer Maori children dying of hot death, sudden infant death syndrome, then we've got other things that come our way. We're killing our babies a lot more than what we ever did 10 and 20 years ago. But we also have harder drugs that our youth are getting into. There's a lot more suicide. So, we get to one place and then we're developing other things to help the link somewhere else with our condition. So, and a lot of that development is about ensuring that we have got solutions ourselves and that we should be in place. We should be delivering a lot more services for ourselves and be in charge of all of that. But in that development, even our own provider organisations do fall over a little bit with having to cope with a lot of governance, management, and then service delivery problems. So, yeah, our development is never ending in that respect.
Linda, I noticed when I've traveled over there, when I've been privileged to be in Aotearoa, that there are a lot of natural healers over there, or traditional healers. And here on Turtle Island, our Western practitioners of Western medicine are being more open to our traditional healers actually coming into the hospitals for our indigenous people. I know some of our insurances even cover for traditional healers. What is the status of that in Aotearoa right now?
Probably in the primary health and community health area, it's a little bit more flexible. Like we have general practice, doctors, clinics and surgeries, and in those community-based type services, it's more flexible to have what we call rongoa practitioners. That's Māori medicine practitioners. Who can come into the community-based services and provide the miri-miri massage, healing massage, and rongoa Ko, which is the medicines from our trees, the leaves, the plants, and things like that. They can prepare those and bring those in and be part of the mainstream, if you like, the mainstream medical healthcare system. In hospital, we don't see that so much. What we do see more, or what we do practice more in the hospital, is our spiritual support and guidance. We have karakia. We make sure that there are places set aside for families to come, because when our loved ones are sick, we come in by the crowd, and we do practice a lot of the spiritual support for our families in hospitals, but probably don't see so much of the rongoa.
That's another thing that we have in common. When a native person gets sick, the whole tribe comes in. And then I had to do in-services at whatever hospital I was working at to explain that yes. Our people come and we stay. we don't leave. And they weren't quite used to that in a couple of hospitals where I was, So it always used to amuse us, because we are the minority population in our own country, but they still get scared of crowds of us. And so we're always being chased out of hospital if there are too many around. You see, the sicker we are, and the more attention we have to have with the health service, the more of our family members will turn up, and they won't go away until they're all happy that they know what's going on with their family member. But it is interesting. They are scared of us when we turn up in numbers. that was another culture shock for the Western practitioners, is that they weren't used to seeing the whole families come and and stay around the clock, and so I ended up doing in-services for that, so our staff would know what to expect, and that during that time I even got where they would started cooking some of our indigenous meals, and especially the fry bread, because we know how healthy that is.
One of the other things, Marsha, with our rongoa clinics, our traditional healers, is that Linda and I work with a collective here in this region, and they are very. It takes a little while before they'll trust and share some of the knowledge that they do have. Because I know some may be thinking, how much of the traditional knowledge and practices do we share with mainstream? And I think they've been around long enough now to know how much to give out to people. Some of the sacred stuff they'll keep for their own in their own clinic and share with our people.
Very good. So we find we have even more similarities, and I'm just wondering what it is like for other indigenous peoples around the world in dealing with Western medicine and the things that are going on. One of the questions that was asked me many years ago was, how can you, as an indigenous person working in a modern day health facility, how does that affect you being traditional? Like, don't I still do the old medicine? And I explained to him that all of your medicines today come from our old medicines. They're all usually plant derivatives, but they have specific chemicals in it now, or synthetic stuff in it now, to give it a specific lifespan, whereas our traditional healers here on Turtle Island would have to know everything about that drug and everything that went on with it and the side effects. And with our medicine, there's also songs and there's also prayers. And you could get the medication just right and mess up on the song or the prayer, and you could kill a person. I mean, it's nothing you play with. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't do it. And so for that reason, a lot of our traditional healers may be in their 60s, 70s, or 80s before they even start to practice.
Yeah, that's right. I always remember my mum saying that we were talking about food at the time, but she also related that the traditional food of from our Maori culture, or from Aotearoa, that we used to eat, our ancestors did, was also our medicine. So there were certain plants in the garden, in the bush, that we ate, but it was also medicine anyway. So they were organic people from way back, just as yours are. Yeah.
Our elders always told us every plant you see on the earth can be used for a medicine or a color like for dye.
Yeah.
It can be used for both.
Yes.
So when are you starting your own clinic up there, Linda?
Well, funny you should say that. We did. We have. We were the second Maori provider in the country to start our own GP, our general practitioner, the doctor's service, and it's now the biggest Maori service provider in the region, in the Whanganui region anyway. So we started that up, and we have a cousin who's a New Zealand politician, Tariana, and she also was very active in helping to establish our own health services. And when we did that, we opened the clinic, and we had mainstream doctors knocking on our door and coming and asking if they could have a look at our clinic. So we had set up in exactly the same way, of course, they set their clinics up. We had the examination beds and we had all the medical and nursing equipment, but they were very curious to know how on earth we did it, where on earth we got the money from for it, and how were we able to employ people, let alone a doctor, to come in and provide services directly to our people. And we actually owned and operated the service. So that service has grown, and I'm talking about the early 1990s when we set that up, 1992, 93. And it's, yes, it's a big employer of our people today. Mm.
Now through your Maori clinics, do you service only Maori people? And the reason I'm asking this is because here on Turtle Island, in order to go to a native healthcare service, you have to be a federally recognized member of a federally recognized tribe. If you're native and you're not recognized by the government, because we have this stupid crap over here in this country called blood quantum, that our people really bought into, and it's even turned our people against each other. You know, like I'm more native than you are type of nonsense.
Right.
You know, and before the Europeans wanted our land, that never existed. You know, we never had that. So I'm wondering if people come in and they do you just treat everybody if they say they're Maori, or do you treat non-Maori, or what?
Yes, absolutely we do. You see, we need their money as much as our own people's money when they come and use our service. So if the quantum thing just would not work in Aotearoa for us. We're so thoroughly inbred with Pākehā people that most of us do have Pākehā ancestry anyway. Our ancestors came from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Europe.
You're supposed to say it the other way. You're supposed to say it the other way. Most of the Pākehā have Maori blood. They're mostly Maori now.
That's right. Yes, so that wouldn't work. But no, we do not turn anyone away. So, and it's kind of like an overall national policy anyway, that we have a health service. It is for everyone. But the only difference is that people need to know that when they come and use our service, we observe our cultural practices as part and parcel of delivering a service to everyone. So they know when they're using a Māori service that Māori cultural practices also have precedence alongside of mainstream medical Western practice.
So if I, as an Indigenous American, came over there and for some reason needed some sort of medical attention, I could go in and get medical attention there?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't have to wear my pew-pew or my korowai or...
or your feathers. Don't even have to wear your feathers. Yes. No, but we'd be like, well, as Indigenous people ourselves, we would be highly aware of you being from another culture. So we would be very careful about what we did and how we did it to you. And if we were not sure, we would be asking you, how would you like this done or that done, or do you have any preference?
I've brought Doreen over to their clinic in Wanganui there several times, and I've observed several things that have gone over there over the years, and it's very similar to ours.
Yeah.
So I felt right at home. And that's usually the only time you see me really quiet because I don't want to muck up, you know. I sit and listen to your elders when I'm over there.
Yes. We do the same over there in your country too, I might add. But we have, I want to tell you about a little thing that we've had. There's been a certain program that we have called Cultural Safety. And And in the Maori term for cultural safety is kawa whakaririharu. And we've found it very necessary that when we are engaging with mainstream services, because mainstream, like the general population and public who govern our country, because they're not so aware of a lot of our cultural practices, we've put programs into place called cultural safety programs. And we've had to turn around and teach them that unless they are mindful of who they are culturally and they understand what their own cultural practices and beliefs are, they're never going to be able to deliver services appropriately to us because we're from a different culture. So we've had a whole, lifespan and decades of doing the cultural safety programs with other cultures in our country, especially around health.
Kapai. Very good. That's good. That's that's kind of along those lines. Vaguely is what Doreen and I are trying to do with the new program that we're getting going. But it's more of helping people find out who they are as Maori or as Indigenous, no matter which tribe, and how they relate to family, to hapu, to iwi, or to tribe, to clan, to tribe, and to nation. Traditionally, right, Doreen?
That's right. I did show Linda a little bit of the presentation, and it's about strengthening ourselves. For us, it's supporting the provider, the communities, the groups, on a healing pathway, using our tupuna kōrero, our kōrero, our thoughts from our ancestors, about strengthening your identity, your cultural identity, your language, all those basic things that we had. So getting back to that so that we can move forward.
Well, I've been very privileged. Doreen's shown me some of your presentations, and what I learned from what I saw was that it's a different way of presenting our culture to the world. There's such important global messages in the presentation that you both have. And if that's the sort of thing you're going to the United Nations with, I think what it struck me that the audience is given time to be quiet. They don't have to talk. They don't have to discuss and debate anything. All they do is look and listen. And when they're being given time to do that in the way that you both have that presentation, is the most wonderful learning environment that we could have. It's an environment that, we could be just giving to our own children, and let alone our elders. It's the time to sit quiet and look and listen to what is being presented to us, and the words of wisdom from both our cultural sides, our ancestors. It has to have that space to sink in and into our psyche. So, we're being positively reinforced merely by the picture that has said already 1,000 words from our ancestors. It's beautiful.
And especially the way it's done where it comes from Indigenous Americans and Maori.
Yes.
So it's a support of both cultures for each other and the traditions of each culture.
Yes, that's beautiful. Yes, very good. And so it does help that global spread of our culture that we fit no matter what part of the world we're in. All Indigenous people would relate to it. Yes.
Yes, because Doreen and I have discussed this at length too. What we found and what I found in my travels, no matter what Indigenous people you come across anywhere in the world, we have so many similarities. Just the basics alone. I mean, there's going to be differences, of course, language and traditional attire and the traditional foods and stuff like that. But the basics of your spirituality is basically the same. And it's not hard for one indigenous person from one part of the world to understand another indigenous person from another part of the world.
Thank you for that, Linda. I actually showed it to you yesterday. And
so it should go down very well at the United Nations.
We're going to put a kiosk up on the corner of two busy streets in New York, and we're going to have Maori music playing for half an hour, and then Cherokee music for another half hour, and we're going to hand out pamphlets and stuff. So this is the way it's going to go down.
Yes, and really. Charge them so she can have her fare to come back home.
I'm just going to hide in her suitcase, so I'll be seeing you in Auckland.
Yeah. That'll be so cool, that trip, yeah.
Just while we're on New York, Marsha, I just want to mention Jerome Kavanagh.
Oh, yeah. He returned, headed back to Aotearoa today, I think.
Yeah. But he was invited to perform at Carnegie Hall. Sorry?
He performed last night.
Yeah. And that's our taonga puoro, which is our traditional flute. So we're so proud of him.
Yeah, I talked with him today, and I told him that I had been posting out of this thing, everything he's been posting to me. I've been putting on Maori and Cherokee whānau, and he thanked me for that. And he said he was really upset that we weren't going to be there for him to see before he left, and he couldn't get his phone to work over here. And I said, well, you should have talked to Doreen. Her phone works anywhere. Her phone worked over here, but mine didn't. And so we made a deal that we're going to run into him either over there or over here, so he knows how to get in touch with us, and that's good. Jerome's a really good friend that I met there through Doreen. I think it was the second trip that I've been over there since I met you, Doreen.
Yeah.
And just one of the finest young people there is to teach the young people the traditions and all of the culture. He's fantastic when it comes to that.
Yeah. Because I think at some stage last year we videoed Jerome teaching us or teaching Matthew how to make a traditional flute using the pieces. Yes. Oh. And we both came away from that with our own kuolo, which is what we call it. But we also videoed Jerome making it with us and the stories as we went along. So at some stage we will show those videos. We just haven't had the opportunity. We haven't been still long enough in either place to start presenting all of those.
We're saving most of we did a lot of videotaping when we were there last year. And so when Sheila and Jerry make Indigenous People's Voice not only a radio program but nation television, then we can show those in our documentaries. Sheila probably just fell out of her chair.
And that's good because we have got a lot of footage. We have got a lot of pictures. Right? We've got a few thousand now from the exchanges each year, and we've tried to keep a log of the journeys that we've taken, and the newsletters that we produce every year is part and parcel of that to let everyone know. This is what we're up to. This is what we've been doing. These are the people we've met, and just take along our people on that journey with us.
So we've kept quite a few people on the journey with us and keeping people informed and sharing with us, the different things that we're trying to get implemented and the programs that we're trying to work with. And so far it's really moved kind of fast, hasn't it?
I know. Within a month, we've almost got 100 people in such a short amount of time join our Facebook page.
Mm.
Most of them from your side, Marshy.
Oh, what can I say?
Good promotion.
It's not like I'm trying or anything. Good things attract good people. That's what I like to think.
Right.
So are you starting any new projects now, Linda? I know you and Doreen are going to be working for a little bit together. Or was that just for this meeting? Hello?
Oh, yeah, you were cutting out. Sorry.
I said I know you and Linda were getting together for this meeting. Are you two working and consulting together on a project now?
Yes, we are. Yeah, and it's so nice because it's been a few years since we've worked on a project together, and it's just, where life takes us. So it's been nice to catch up again, just slip straight back into the roles that we've always had, and just catch up with, what's changed or what's happened over the years. It's been nice to do that. The need is still there for our people, otherwise, her and I wouldn't be back out there again.
That's right. The particular project we're working on at the moment is we're in our Māori Health Development Pathway and Journey. We've had government funding that has been given to Māori providers to do all sorts of things with. And this particular bit of funding that they're now throwing at us is to show the government how we can ensure that we are sustainable without having to rely on piecemeal bits of funding that they give us. So we've had to think about what we need to be working with this particular provider on, that Doreen's working for at the moment. They have to put together an organisational development plan that shows the government how they can be sustainable if the bit of funding they currently get was taken away. So these are little hurdles that quite easily turn into a little bit of chaos for providers if they don't know how to respond to those sorts of requests from government. And so we've been working together to try to put this plan in place. But it means that we have to work with governance levels of our Māori organisations and educate and inform the governance people about what the government is up to themselves and interpret a little bit what their intentions are. So it's quite hard work on our part because we're doing an interpretation kind of service to them on government policy, and then we're having to write their plans for them after all of the meetings we have.
Now you're going through an election pretty soon over there. Am I correct?
Yes.
Is that affecting any of the government funding for Maori-oriented projects?
It may well do. Because different governments that come in will change a lot of funding strategies and policies that may well affect where funding is placed at the moment for Māori providers. So sometimes the government agencies, like the ministries of health, education and whatever, they will try to ensure that providers feel secure enough about what they already have. But if they didn't have it, what have they planned for in place of what might not come their way, come a new government? So,
now to obtain these government monies for a Maori project, do you obtain these by grants, and do you have to tell them what exactly everything is being spent for and stuff like we do over here?
Oh, absolutely. Right down to every invoice, every receipt we get from any shop we buy anything at, how many dollars and cents have gone towards food, equipment, materials, anything at all. We have to produce a receipt or an invoice or something like that to evidence what we spent those dollars on.
You know, you think with all the destruction that they're doing to our countries, we would get some of that for nothing, wouldn't you?
Yes. Yes.
I just thought I'd throw it in there. You know, this thing called colonization isn't all it's built up to be, is it?
That's right. Yes, and the taxes they take, we don't see any invoice from them. They just provide us with an amount we have to pay them, and we carry on. Yeah, no, it's got, yeah. So there's a lot of work with our people that requires straddling the two camps. We're interpreting government policy to them at the same time as giving our own people back the tools that they need to get ahead in their own development for their own future. So that's the kind of work we're in all the time.
How do they take learning what government policy is? You know, because every time you do this, you're actually telling them what the government policy is, so you're actually instructing them and keeping them on the straight and narrow with the stuff that you're doing. How do they receive that type of enlightenment?
Oh, yes, well, quite well. We had a lot of laughs. We have a lot of laughs when we have these meetings, because we all know that at the end of the day, we're all in this together. We're all from the same, the same nation, the same tribes, and we know how to break all this tedious policy work down into something that we can laugh at for ourselves. Otherwise, we'll just collapse like some of us have. Some of our organisations have collapsed with the weight of having to cope with government demands on their services, on their resources, and still not meet a lot of the performance the government wants out of us for the little they do. Yes. We'd all die and collapse and fall over. We didn't have time to laugh at one another. Makes work a bit easier.
Marcy, we've only got a couple of minutes before a break. Do you want to give the number out? And I'd also like to say to everyone, all our whānau here from Aotearoa, if they'd like to leave a message in our chat room, please do so, and it'll come straight to us.
Yes, the telephone number is area code 718-506-1564. Again, that's area code 718-506-1564. And I think we'll probably head on off to break, and we'll have some more information on what's going on over in Aotearoa when we return. How does that sound?
Sounds great. Right.
Oh.
Join us on Just Us Radio Network for our shows Employment, Unity in Community, Numbers in Time, The Indigenous People's Voice, One Point of View, Walking the Talk with Kurt, and the People's Round Table. Check out our website for information about upcoming shows. Just ask Google to find Just Us Radio Network, and you will find links to our website and to our Blog Talk and Facebook pages, as well as to our podcast, where you can subscribe for automatic downloads.
Welcome back to the Indigenous People's Voice. Our special guest with Doreen and I this evening is Linda Thompson from Aotearoa, and she's been filling us in on projects and Maori initiatives and things like that this evening. Welcome back, you guys.
Okay. During the break, Marcy, we've sort of been, because we do have a lot of stories here that we can talk about. So Linda and I were jotting, well, she's been jotting things down because she's got some beautiful stories, especially about Wanganui, the Wanganui River. And I think there's a little bit of that on my profile on the Just Us Network Facebook page. I did a little story on the Wanganui River. But Linda also, because this is home for her, Wanganui's home for her, so there's some other stories as well.
And since I've been whāngai into the Ngāpuhi, I'm not really all that familiar with the area, so I'm just dying to learn.
I'm trying to remember some of that. You'll probably only talk about things that I've been told myself. But when we introduce ourselves and we to identify who we are and where we are from, we give our what we call our pepeha, and that's establishing our identity. And so when I was saying earlier that my mountain is Ruapehu, my river is Wanganui, and my tribe is Atihaunui-a-paparangi, we identify ourselves by those features of our environment that we belong to. So there's people in Wanganui far more educated and experienced than I am to talk about Wanganui, but just very briefly from our awa, the Wanganui River, Wanganui River comes from the mountain up in the middle of the North Island, and it flows down into the sea. And so all along the Wanganui track, our Te Atihaunui tribe has divided the river into 3 ancestral areas. And the top area nearer to the mountain, our ancestor is the older sister of the other 2 ancestors who were her younger brothers. So the top end of the river is called the Maunga tribal area, and in the middle of the river is the other brother called Tamaupoko, and the bottom end of the river is the youngest out of the 3 siblings, and he is Tupoko. But as tribal people, we mix and mingle with our own families up and down the river, and we've intermarried, and over time, with descendants like myself, we actually belong to all 3 parts of the river. So, yes, it probably is no different from how you all connect with one another as well.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those stories are lovely. I do remember my father, he was not a tohunga, as such a tohunga, an expert, and going back to talking about rongoa Māori, the Māori traditional medicine, was not an expert. He was not a tohunga, but he was taught by tohunga how to collect bark from certain native trees and flowers and plants from out of the bush that we used for Māori medicine. So our father had lots of lovely stories, but our father always had a twist to a lot of his stories that was quite funny. He was quite humorous and a great storyteller. So, but I haven't inherited any of those lovely ways of telling stories and embellishing all the facts with a little bit more exaggeration on the facts. But he had lots of stories to tell about how he was taught by the tohunga to gather these medicines for our people. A lot of them he used himself. I can remember him using some of the plants to heal a breast abscess that our mother had many years ago. And one particular year, one of our younger brothers, he wasn't quite at school age, and he ran out onto the road and was run over by a car that was passing by our gate, and he smashed his hip and broke his leg. And he was only 4 years old, so he was taken up to the hospital to have his hip and his leg put in plaster. And when he left the hospital after about a month or so, the surgeon said to our mum and dad that their child would not walk straight again. He would have one leg shorter than the other. And so my dad packed him off home, and he immediately got a big bathtub outside. We never cooked or prepared our rongoa in the kitchen of the house. It was always prepared outside in a separate space. So our father got a big tin bathtub and filled it with the kōwhai and tutu, the bark from the kōwhai tree, which is a native plant with a beautiful yellow flower, and stripped the bark down, lined the bark with the bark, and tutu is it's quite a poisonous in our bush here, but again a native plant, and he also lined that on top of the bark of the kōwhai bark, and filled it with boiling water, and then let it cool enough for our brother to be immersed in the bath. And my dad did this religiously for about 3 months, every day without fail, and just bathed our brother with his smashed hip. Was healed, but the leg was shorter. One leg, the broken leg and hip was shorter than the other. So he just bathed our brother every single day for at least 3-4 months, and massaged and looked after him. By the time he went back to have his 3 or 4 month checkup from the surgeon, his bones had healed, his leg was straight, and his 2 legs were even. He was walking very well without the help of crutches or walking stick or anything like that. And he was off to school when he turned 5, and trotted over the road to school and was good as gold.
I bet the doctors were amazed, weren't they?
Yeah. That's right. So a lot of my mother always used to say that the rongoa is, yes, absolutely the healing part of the physical healing part for us, but the prayers are also important.
Yeah.
And 50% of the healing that takes place for us is our believing. If we just believe that this will be, it will be okay, he will be healed, he will walk again, he will not be crippled. 50% of the healing was believing that would be so.
And the faith, and the faith in the healer.
Yes. So they had very holistic concept of what healing was. It is the believing, having the faith. It is using the resources that are given to us with respect. It is having the commitment and commitment to prayer, karakia, to make these things right. That's all together. One is not separated from the other when we're in a process of healing.
Yes.
It's all integrated and all there.
Many years ago, when my late wife was still alive, I was called to our hospital where I worked in the Chicago area at the time. There was a woman from the Blackfeet tribe in Montana, and I had gone in on rounds. I was the supervisor of the hospital, 555-bed hospital, and I ran across her while I was making my rounds. And she was so happy to see another indigenous person in the hospital, and we sat and talked, and then she said she was going to go for tests, because they were going to have to operate on her spine. And she was a nurse. She had her PhD in nursing, but she worked for pediatrics, and she went all over the country making sure that all reservations were getting the proper care for their children, as a pediatric nurse. And so she asked and she asked me in a traditional way, if I would come up and do some stuff with her, in a medicine way. So my wife and I went up, because I don't know how it is with Maori, but if I'm going to be with a woman patient, I have to have a woman with me, because there's certain things that I as a man can't do that a woman can do. And so we went up, and I put a big sign on the door that said, "Do not disturb for an hour and under any circumstances." And we went into ceremony and to prayer and stuff like that. And then as soon as it was done, I opened the door, and they came and got her, and she asked if we would wait till she came back. And so we did. We waited for her. She was gone about a half an hour or so. And when she came back, she had the doctors following her. And they were going, "What did you do?" And I said, "I can't tell you what I did." They said her vertebrae were degenerating, and this is why we were going to go in and put, we were going to correct this, by inserting a metal rod or whatever they were going to do. I don't remember exactly what they were going to do. That's been several years ago. And they said, and everything's fine now. Everything is fine now. And I said, "Well, I can't tell you," but I said, "Well, I just did things the way that we were brought up and the way that we were taught to do things." And I said, "That's all I can tell you." I want you to know that my life was miserable at that hospital for the next 3 months, because they would jump out of rooms and say, "Mashu, what did you do? What did you do?" I didn't do anything. The Creator did this. I'm just a little vessel that was given what little knowledge that I've got, and it worked because it was done in the good way. And then out of that, one of the non-indigenous doctors there signed up for an internship to go work with the Inuit up in Alaska. And he says, "What is the best advice that you can give me to go work with these people?" And I said, "Number one, you don't go in like you've got all the answers." I said, "Because with all the knowledge you've got, you're going to find out how dumb you are in the grand scheme of things." And listen to what the elders say, because you're going to walk away with the most wonderful education on how to be a human being, something that you've probably missed in your education. I never did know what happened to him after that.
some of our other traditions that we've had have been born out of probably our hardships as well with children and our youth. And I can remember our father used to take us down the Wanganui River and talk to us about the different marae that were on the river. But because our father loved food as well, so he'd stop and he'd find all these places where there was food. But he would talk to us a little bit about how the orchards were planted or came to be planted on these marae, and what the marae used to have that we don't have anymore. The marae is our big meeting houses where we used to live. And we used to have little houses dotted around the big houses on each of these marae up and down the river. And yes, so would have been about the turn of the century, about the early 1900s or so. Our population was not very big. The Maori population nationally was not very big. And it was the initiative of a lot of nurses at the time that they went back visiting and doing all the child health checks when our people were still living in Papakainga. Papakainga are the homes that are dotted around the big meeting houses that are on the marae. So the nurses used to go to our Papakainga and examine and look at our babies with our parents and talk to our parents about how the health of our babies were, and found that a lot of the babies were not thriving, and nor were the parents and our people. And so they began to talk to the mothers about planting their own gardens and having their own, not only their own flower gardens, but also their veggie gardens and their orchards and planting fruit trees and things like that. So a lot of our marae today up and down the river do have a lot of the places where the orchards were. I can remember we called into Korimiti, the name of one of our marae on the river, and our father pointed out the plum trees that were at the back of the meeting house, and the plum tree was only one in a whole orchard full of fruit trees that had been planted to help our people thrive. And at times that were really hard for them when there was no money and practically no food to feed them. So a lot of nurses initiated those basic survival schools for our families up and down the river as well. Yeah. Which was really good.
At least they had some nourishment and some healthy nourishment. So was that planted like behind the Whare Tupuna or further back?
Yes. The big meeting houses with the Whare Tupuna. Yeah, the ancestral house. And behind them, where the kitchens and the toilet blocks were, there's quite often orchards were grown. And my father showed us where he was brought up. He was not from the Wanganui region, but his aunt and uncle had married into the Wanganui region. And when his mum died we had a big flu epidemic in New Zealand in 1917, 1918, and my dad's mum died. Dad was born in 1917. So his aunt and uncle came over to the Hawke's Bay and took him back to the Wanganui River to be brought up by his aunt. And yes, I can remember he used to take us down the river and he showed us a lemon tree that was standing in the grounds of the marae where he was brought up. And he said, this lemon tree marks the spot where his auntie and his nanny had their home, where he was brought up. So yes, we've got food all up and down the river from years back, where it was used to help feed our people in the hard times. Yeah.
Linda, I have a question for you.
Yes.
I know that there is a big spiritual canoe trip, or waka, by waka, where you go down the Wanganui and you stop at the different maraes on this trip. I think it's about a 2-week trip, isn't it, Doreen?
Yes, it is. And I probably know a little bit more about just the details around the Atihaunui waka is what it's called. And it's a 15-day trip from the mountain where Linda was talking about, at the top of our river, to the sea. And they come down on waka, which is our canoes. You know, 1, 2, 3, and 4 men canoes. Groups come down and they stop at every marae, and learn the history, stay the night. The local people will feed and just whakawhanaungatanga is what we call it here, but become one with everyone as they come down the marae. And the trip is really for people that whakapapa that can connect tribes on the marae.
So I guess my question is, Linda, have you connected yet? Have you been on this trip?
Pretty connected. Well, I've only done part of that trip. I'm not sure if Linda's done the full trip.
No, my daughter, I'm asthmatic, you see, and my daughter said, I said, I suppose I should do this trip. And my daughter said, oh, God, no, Mum, you would die. Like, you have to get out of the river and cart your canoe up the hill, and, I would die. I was about to do it.
Well, have a way home, eh? Well, I have been on the Wanganui with Doreen, and I have not gone on that particular journey of connection, but I've been shown a part of it, and I was taken to a little island there around the bend from where Doreen's parents live, and it was an island. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doreen. It was the island where they used to take their medicine people or something.
Young Hemi was talking about it. It's the little island that's straight off Pukaki Marae. Yeah. And it's since been blessed so that people can go there. But yes, we were lucky to have young Hemi Marekura. Yes. And as young as he is, he has learnt some of those old stories. And he did an excellent job teaching.
Did an excellent history while we were on the river.
Yes. And besides the canoe trip, all the teams that are in their own canoes and rowing down the river, there is just as big a group of people who are travelling on the road, following the river and following all the waka. And so they go into the marae and prepare the marae for when the groups come, and we do our traditional pōheri welcome. They are welcomed off the river and into the marae, and that's where the storytelling, like the te rahoi, the spiritual part, I suppose, of the journey, is the storytelling that happens in the ancestral houses that are dotted up and down the river. And everybody gets off their canoes, off their waka, and they are welcomed out of the river into the ancestral home, and the local whānau or local families there host them and tell them the story. They do storytelling about their history and how they came to settle there and what they did.
Now, the one that you're talking about right now takes place on the Wanganui River. I know our river up north is the Hokianga. Do they have things like this for the Hokianga and other rivers as well?
I don't know. That tribe sticks to itself.
Yeah. No,
I don't want to pull any tribal weight here.
Well, of course, Hokianga, yes, they've got a river, all right, but it's not as beautiful as the Wanganui River.
Why did I know that was coming?
But they also have a big harbour, and so they're sea people as well. So they probably got a lot of sea stories and fishing and diving and things like that as well. Yeah, but we're definitely bush and river people.
So not flaunting my Napuhi affiliation, I was just wondering if other iwis along other rivers did the same thing, to maintain the culture and the stories and the history of those rivers and all the maraes that would be located along those other rivers.
Yes, the Tainui people do it. The people in the middle of the North Island going towards Auckland, which is Waikato Tainui tribal region. I think they do it too, but yes, we don't hear so much. We don't know so much about it as well as we do about our own.
Well, yeah.
We hear the kōrero that when they talk, the speakers, he piko he taniwha. Around every bend, there's a taniwha, and it could be a story, it could be a legend.
Yeah.
So that's something that's well known when some of our the men speak. Yes, that's what they recite and would know straight away where they come from.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
I was just thinking, that would be a positive way, and I was figuring if the people along one river did it, and the people around the other rivers did the same thing, that would be a great way to instill the tradition and to make sure that it's not forgotten. And I'm sure, it's like here, I know more about what's going on in my tribal area than I know what's going on, let's say, out on our tribe that's out in the plains.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
And we definitely know not to speak for any other tribe but our own.
Yeah,
exactly.
And so even when I am in my own tribal area, I know to only speak about the things I have been told from my own parents or my own grandparents or my own family. I would not speak for the whole of the rest of my own tribe either. But you don't know what the other family stories are.
Yeah. I always say I can only talk about what I know.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Well, here's another thing I know.
Uh-oh.
I also, on the other side, another tribe I belong to is right in the middle of the North Island, under the mountains, under the Ruapehu Tongariro Mountains, is a lake, and it's the largest lake in New Zealand. It's Lake Taupo. And I'm on my mother's side. I'm from the tribe who are from around that lake, and our ancestor story. The chief who was our ancestor, he had a friend who was regarded by a lot of other tribes in the country as is not very nice. He was a warlike warrior, and that chief's name was Te Rauparaha. Te Rauparaha belonged to the Tainui tribe, but he was a warring chief, and he came through all of the middle of the North Island and partly up in the Coromandel area as well, and he tracked his way down through to Lake Taupo. And my ancestor, whose name was Te Wharerangi, hid him in a kumara pit because a lot of the tribes in the northern parts of the North Island were after him because he had raided their marae, stolen their wives, and killed off a lot of the warriors in those tribes. So they were after Te Rauparaha. And so when Te Rauparaha got to Lake Taupo, my ancestor was a friend of his and hid him in a kumara pit, a potato pit that was dug in the ground for storing potatoes. Mm. And he sat his wife our ancestor sat his wife over the top of that kumara pit. So when the warring tribes came down to our ancestors' fortress, our ancestors' pa or marae was built as a fortress because, of course, our people are warring people. Well, know how to fight. So when they came to my ancestors' fortress, they broke through the fortress and were after Te Reo Paraha. So our ancestors said, no, he's not here. And they looked around and they didn't find him. So when they had gone, Te Reo Paraha crawled out of the kumara pit. And as he came out of the pit, he performed this haka. And it's a very famous haka that our All Blacks, our football team, our rugby football team perform when they are overseas and that perform playing rugby with other nations around the world.
Yes.
The All Blacks perform this particular haka, and it's called kamate kamate. You know, I die, and ka ora, I live. So, and while he was in this kumara pit, these were the thoughts going through his head. Oh my God, I'm going to die. But when the tribes went away and they couldn't find him, he realised he was going to live. And so he was very thankful to my ancestor for harbouring him and hiding him away from his enemies. But in fact, as I said, where our tribe, our people are a warring people, when the other tribes realised that my ancestor had hidden Te Reo Paraha in the kumara pit, they came back and took his pa and killed him and ate him. So we survived only because our ancestor took his son and said to his cousin to swim across the lake and take his son down to our Wanganui tribes to be looked after because he knew what was going to happen to him. Yeah, so our people were very ruthless, very warlike, and they certainly do it. But yeah.
So basically what you're saying is always stay on the good side of Maori.
Yeah, you like them gobbled up. Yeah. Oh, so while we've got some beautiful stories, we've also got that side of us as well.
I tell you, I've been going over there for about 30 years, and I'm still alive, so I must be doing something right.
But we're still very proud of the haka every time it's performed as well, because it's a very well-known haka.
I always listen to that haka when the All Blacks are playing a rugby team, you know, and I go on the YouTube and I look at those All Black teams and listen to what the other teams have as a challenge, you know, like from Tonga, and also from Australia, you know, when their Aborigine come out and do equivalent to a haka and a war challenge, but I never knew where that haka came from for the All Blacks until this evening. So thank you for that story.
The story of that haka, and I'm a descendant of the chief who that haka was performed for. Even though he died, he got eaten in the end. Yes, all those tribes from up the Coromandel way, they came down and gobbled him up. But if you were ever to go to my marae in Tupareto at the Lake Taupo, the family who I belong to in that tribe will never say what I'm saying now. They will never say that our ancestor was eaten. They will say things like, as soon as he realised that he was going to be caught, he turned to wood. So he couldn't be eaten. That's what he was saying. I didn't know he was eaten.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. Turn to wood. Yes.
Yeah.
But I think it would only be a native that would understand that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, baby, a silly woman who would mouth out things like this. He was eaten. No. Our uncle told us. He told us very, very clearly. No, he turned to wood.
He turned to wood and became later on as a very well-known toko. Carved up. Yeah. And a toko is a very elaborately carved. It can be used as a cane, but also for a talking stick when people are talking inside of the whare tupuna, which is the spirit house, on a marae, which is like the ground of the place where the whare tupuna is, the spirit house, and then next to that you have a whare kai, which is an eating house. Am I correct? I'm giving you what little Napuhi knowledge I know here, but it's pretty much the same all over Aotearoa.
Yeah, it's like Marshy's talking about Tahiti Marae.
Yes.
Which is where Terapi Coates, who is the whānau that adopted Marshy. And gosh, what year was that, Marshy? 17?
It was it was back in the 80s. That was Tahikiroa Marae. Up in Tahiti, that's what I call the home. That's where my adopted family is.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful up there.
Yeah.
And Doreen was absolutely horrified to go into Napuhi country, and it was the loving care of my sister Rita that made her feel at home.
I wasn't horrified, Matthew. It's just, when you're not on your own tribal land.
Oh, yes.
And my genealogy, I can whakapapa from Otaki, close to Wellington, all the way up to Hamilton, and partly over the east coast. But I don't think I do right up north. So you actually feel like you're not in your tribal land.
Yeah, well, you're not.
Yeah. So it was a little bit scary knowing that.
Yeah, sure. But the same thing goes on here on Turtle Island. Like I feel at home usually no matter where I go, because I treat people the way that I expect to be treated or I want to be treated. But even though I'm treated very well most places I go, you still are aware that that's not your tribal territory.
No, that's right. Yeah.
And it can be the most beautiful place in the world. You can be treated like royalty and everything, but there's still that feeling, I don't connect here. This is not my people.
That's right.
But the thing that's different here as opposed to Aotearoa is that with every tribal group that you go amongst here on Turtle Island, the culture is different. You have a different culture, you have different traditions, and you have a different language, completely different language in most cases.
Yes.
So in that aspect, we're a lot different over here than whereas over in Aotearoa, you feel that difference in the different tribal areas, but you still are today called all Maori, and you still have the basic connections, of language. And traditions,
And we have one language. Māori have one language, Te Reo Māori language. But we have 3 or 4 different dialects. And the dialects are just different ways of saying certain words and sounds. Like NG, where we use a NG. But the tribes from Tuhoi, which is over towards the east coast way.
Yes, the people of the mist.
G, and just say nah. They won't say in at the end. They'll say nah.
I've been up to Tuhoi to see the people of the mist there before.
Oh, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the people around Wanganui have a trouble with that WH sound, isn't it?
Right. Whānau, whakawhanaungatanga. Not whānau and whakawhanaungatanga. We say whānau.
Oh, well, that's easy for you to say.
Yeah. But getting back to what Doreen was saying about going into about us going into different tribal areas. Because in a spiritual sense, that is still a very strong part of us, of who we are as Māori. And I'll tell you a story about when we started the National Council of Māori Nurses. And this was all of us who were Māori, who were nurses, who suddenly found that a lot of what we learned as nurses was Pākehā, and we lost a lot of our Māori cultural values and beliefs. And we did lots of things that were not right, not quite right in our nursing practice, like our the afterbirth, after mothers had given birth to their babies. The afterbirth, traditionally in our culture, was always kept and always buried back in the earth.
Yes.
And so we've got those common names for like whānau or whānau, family, but whānau also means to give birth. And the afterbirth is called whenua, which is the earth or land. And so the whenua for our afterbirth is always returned to the earth, to the whenua. So anyway, when we established the National Council of Māori Nurses, we suddenly realised, oh my goodness, we come from a very strong culture of very strong beliefs and practices. And so it also translated into the journey that we took in our very early establishment days, the journey that we took into different tribal regions. And one day, this would have been well over a year after we had established our Māori Nurses Council, and we had been travelling the country talking to our people from the different tribes, and so entering their different tribal regions and their tribal homes and houses, that a relation of mine came to stay with me in Auckland, and she noticed that there was something wrong with me. And I didn't know that there was anything at all wrong with me. I thought I was, just doing my job, and establishing the Māori Nurses Council was something that I was beginning to take on as a passion and a lifelong passion as well. So I didn't think that I was sick. But she said to me, Linda, you don't look well. I will have to go and get my father to come and do karakia and splash some water over you. And I said, oh, do you? And she said, yes, you do not look well. So she did. She got my uncle, and he came and he asked, who I was, making sure that I knew who I was. And so I spread my whakapapa papers out, and he splashed those with water. He did karakia over those, and then he did it over me and said prayers over me. And he said, I'm on my way home now, and I'm going to call in and see your mum and dad, and I will tell your mum and dad what I've just done. And I said, oh yes, okay, all right. So off he went. And a few months later, I went home to my mum and dad, and they had been waiting for me to come home. But I knew that as soon as I walked in the door, I saw them look at me, and they were looking to see if I was all right, and which I was. So I went in and sat down, and I said, Mum, did Uncle Jack call in home to see you and talk to you about what he had some prayers over me in Auckland? And my mum and dad said, yes, we know. And my mother said, what is this work that you are doing? And I said, well, we're just going around the country, and we're going to different marae, and it's just absolutely, it's wonderful. We're learning about all of our different tribes that we have, and we're going on to their marae and talking to our people about it, and they're giving us a mandate to talk on their behalf about health and nursing. It's absolutely wonderful. And I said, but Uncle Jack did all this stuff with me. And my mum said, This work that you are doing in other tribal areas. They are tribal areas that you do not belong to. When you go into other people's tribal area, you must not forget your karakia, and you must go to the water. And she said, it will cost you nothing, but it will cost you everything if you do not observe those little practices that we have. So she said, that is what you must do, and that's what Uncle Jack did for you. So don't go into other tribal places and think that it's okay. It's not unless you remember who you are and your karakia and the water.
And that's another thing that we have in similarity with is that our people, our Cherokee people, are always going to water as well.
Yes, they are.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's where we do our prayers, and we have our songs that go with that. It plays a very important part, of who we are. But yeah, I understand that. 100%. So he helped you get back on your path then.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
I thought I was right on the pathway, and didn't even know I was sick. So that goes to show how far away I had gone from who I was in a spiritual sense and in a cultural sense.
See, now when we go amongst other people, traditionally when we go amongst other people, we always prepare ourselves for like a protection, and Doreen knows this. Like I always carry my medicine with me. I won't leave the house without it, and we travel quite a bit, so I always make sure that I'm well protected in that way, where nothing can affect us.
But that's right, Master, and you were part of the last prayers that we had at Mum and Dad's.
Yes.
Came on site with us for the prayers for my trip when I was going over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So,
yeah.
So it's just remembering, and that's probably what I didn't do when I went up to up north.
Yeah.
I probably forgot.
Yeah.
To do karakia and that. Yes, I felt a little bit uneasy. Yeah. Even though the family where I went to, Marsha, were absolutely beautiful, and they knew my family, I actually forgot for myself to do that protection.
Yeah, it's those little things you forget. And see, and even today's technology like Skype has connected us where we can actually participate with each other in things that I call sacred like that.
Yeah.
Sharing in the karakia and the prayers and stuff like that for events, it's really wonderful. Absolutely wonderful, and can be used in traditional ways as well.
Yeah. And it just goes to show how important it still is. Like, just when you think it doesn't matter anymore, it matters even more.
Especially if you were brought up in the ways, or even a little bit in the traditional ways, these things will come back and slap you upside the head and say, They'll get your attention somehow. It may be in the most simplest of ways, but it'll come back and they go, aren't you forgetting something? And it could be through another person. Just like it happened with you, somebody else noticing that you weren't quite yourself.
Yes. Thank goodness for my cousin. Yeah, she saw it. Well, I never had a clue. Yeah.
Well, Doreen and I were talking about it, but we didn't say anything.
Yes. So those things are still very strong culturally, and spiritually. Those things are very real. It's all still alive.
You know, it's the same with our people. You know, we have people today that think they can get away with doing things because nothing's going to happen to them because that's old belief, you know. And I'm talking about saying,
you're not going to get found out.
Yeah, because you know, because we have what we call good medicine and we have what we call bad medicine, and most tribes are aware of this. And when you do something, whether it be good or bad, it's going to come back on you and the ones you love the most.
Yes, exactly.
We say the ones closest to your heart, and that's the ones that you love the most. So whatever you do, it's going to have consequences.
Yes. And
so some of these people, especially the younger ones, think that they can go and do something that's not quite right and get their way because there's medicine for that too. And they think, oh, well, nothing's going to happen to me, and sure enough, it does. And sometimes they actually lose the one they love. You know, maybe they get sick and die, or they go off, you know, somewhere else, you know, and they're not a part of their life anymore. And that's just like an example. Mm-hmm. But these things, you know, if you're indigenous, these things are in you and they are around you. And just because you're living in today's 21st century doesn't mean that these things don't hold true. Mm-hmm. And especially if you were brought up with any type of traditional knowledge, you know, fortunate enough to have that around you, that's going to have an even greater impact on you. And the ones that are raised, because we have a lot of indigenous people that are raised in urban situations, you know, and they're not around their communities anymore because of one reason or another, and they'll have things happen to them, and then they'll have to find out what's going on, you know, and how to get back to, you know, to correct this and, you know, to get themselves back on the right path. Linda, I would like to thank you so much for being on our program tonight.
Thank you.
And sharing your stories and telling us all about what you're doing. And usually what we do when we go off, we usually have, you know, closing comments. So do you have a closing comment for our show tonight?
No, except to say thank you, Marshall, very much for facilitating this time with us and inviting me to be part of your circle of friends and farmers. And thank you to Doreen as well. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. We haven't got through half the stuff I've written down to talk about. Another time.
You're always welcome back on the show anytime, Linda.
Thank you.
Do you have any closing comments?
Just namahi atu kia koe, Linda. Thank you, Linda, for coming on to the show with us. And I know you've got all these beautiful stories, and you've got a long list that we didn't even get to. So another day. And thank you to friends, family, and people listening today.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in this evening, and thank you to Linda Thompson for being our guest tonight, and thank you to the rest of our crew, Chimmy and Sheila, for making the show work tonight as good as it has. And I'd like to say Sonoyo sta elidona dagaha'i oganale eli nagida. That's good night and thank you, and until we meet again, my friends and everyone.
Good night.
Kia ora. Way
Way